Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome back. It's about 8:30 in the morning. We're going to call this meeting back into order. We have a few other proposals here to get through. Most of them deal with the reauthorizations of antlerless moose and brown bear tag exemption fees in regions other than we talked about here today. So we can dive into the proposals.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. For the record, Natalie Weber with the Division of Wildlife Conservation. So the first chunk of proposals that we have in the reauthorization suite are the reauthorize the brown bear tag fee exemption for the Central and Southwest region, which is Proposal 249. Proposal 250, reauthorize the resident grizzly bear and brown bear tag fee exemption through interior Northeast Alaska region. And then Proposal 251 to reauthorize the current resident tag fee exemptions for brown bears in units 18, 22, 23, and 26A, so the Arctic and Western region of Alaska. And the department fully supports all of those, and we have AC support as well.
Thank you for that.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 249, reauthorize the brown bear tag fee exemptions for the Central and Southwest region.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion from board members on this. As Natalie pointed out, there's a lot of AC support for this. Any other board members' thoughts?
No, I agree. There was a lot of AC support. It works good for giving opportunity to, harvest brown bears, and it promotes reasonable opportunity for subsistence.
Thanks for that. Any further comments from board members? If not, we might be ready for the question.
Call the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please, Carrie?
Final action on Proposal 249. Bechtel.
Yes.
Fletcher.
Yes.
Barrett.
Yes.
Loring.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
That's it. Motion carries 6-0, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 250, authorize resident grizzly brown bear tag fee exemptions throughout interior and northeast Alaska.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion for board members on this topic. Just a different reason. I'll remember Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in full support of this. I think the Fairbanks AC had some comments on it. Their comments were, wanting to have somebody, once they get their grizzly bear sealed, paid a $25 fee, but that's out of compliance with the statute. So I'm still in support of it. I was just recognizing the Fairbanks AC's comments.
Thank you for that. Other board members' comments on this? If not, we might be ready for the question.
Call the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 251. Hoffman.
Yes.
Barrett.
Yes.
Loring.
Yes.
Fletcher.
Yes.
Bechtel.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 251, reauthorize the current resident tag fee exemptions for brown bear in units 18, 22, 23, and 26A alpha.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion from board members? Member Bechtel.
Yeah, there's 6 ACs in favor of this.
Thank you for that. Building the record a little bit. Member Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It also encourages reasonable opportunity without having to pay a fee for the harvest of grizzly bears for subsistence.
Thank you for that. Further comments from board members? If not, we might be ready for the question.
Call the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 251. Barrett.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Fletcher.
Yes.
Bechtel.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Loring.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 252, reauthorize the antlerless moose hunts in units 14A alpha and 14B bravo.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Natalie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Yes, the department supports this proposal as well as all of the required advisory committees for reauthorizing this hunt. Thank you.
Other board members, questions on this? Comments on this? If not, Member Brett.
I'm in favor. I'm voting yes on this in compliance with the statute, having ACs reauthorize antlerless moose hunts.
Thank you for that. Other board members' comments? If not, we might be ready for the question.
Call the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 252. Brett?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Fletcher?
Yes.
Batesville?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Loring?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 253, authorize the antlerless moose season in Unit 17A Alpha.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this one, we do have, the department does support this proposal for 17A Alpha as well as the Nushagak Advisory Committee. You'll notice in the AC comment matrix that we are missing one advisory committee that is needed to authorize the hunt. However, that advisory committee, the Kodiak AC, did meet via Zoom November 24th. There were 10 members present. They voted in unanimous support of the proposal. We've just had a little bit of a hang-up getting the official AC minutes for that meeting. However, they will be submitted and will be part of this record. So we do have the advisory committee support for this proposal that is needed to authorize the hunt. It's just not currently reflected in the matrix available to the board at the moment. But again, we do have a recording of that meeting. We do have unanimous support from the Kodiak Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much for that. Other comments from board members?
Call the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 253. Loring?
Yes.
Batesville?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Fletcher?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 254, reauthorize the antlerless moose season in Unit 18.
We need a second, I think.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yep, this is another one, Unit 18, reauthorize the antlerless moose season. Department supports this proposal as well as all of the advisory committees. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Other board member comments?
Call the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please, Gary?
Final action on Proposal 254. Fletcher?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Loring?
Yes.
Batesville?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 255, reauthorize the fall antlerless hunt during September and a winter any moose season during February in a portion of Unit 19D Delta.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, with this one, 19D Delta, we have the department in support and all the advisory committees in support as well.
Thank you for that. Member
Call
Brett?
question.
Oh, question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 255. Loring?
Yes.
Fletcher?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Batesville?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Chair, I also have a correction for the record. I incorrectly read 250 as 251. So 250 carried, 6 in favor, 0 against.
Thanks for that. And I probably should have mentioned to the public that Member Gardner had to leave us this morning, so we have 6 board members present.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 256, reauthorize the antlerless moose seasons in Unit 20A Alpha.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Again, this one, we do have the department in support as well as the necessary advisory committee support to reauthorize this one also.
Thanks for that, Member Loring.
I think it's important to note that 2 of the 5 advisory committees voted against it, and the Fairbanks AC, even though they voted for it, was split pretty evenly. So, but they did meet the requirement to have the majority of the ACs vote in favor. So, but there was quite a bit of opposition to it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Other board members on this? Vice Chair Hoffman.
Question, Natalie. So how many more would have voted the other way, would have changed the outcome? One more?
To the chair, Member Hoffman, yes, one more.
Thank you for that. Any other questions from board members?
Call the question.
The question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding costs to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 256. Batesville?
Yes.
Fletcher?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Loring,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, move to adopt Proposal 257, reauthorize the antlerless moose seasons in 20B Bravo.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, with this one, the department supports it, and we do also have the necessary advisory committee support to reauthorize this hunter.
Thanks for that. Other board members on this?
Call the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding cost to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 257. Mueller,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Bechtel,
Yes.
Loring,
Yes.
Fletcher,
Yes.
Barrett.
Yep.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, move to adopt Proposal 258, reauthorize the antlerless moose hunting seasons in 20D Delta.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this one, the department supports it, and we do have the necessary advisory committee support to reauthorize it as well.
Thank you for that. Discussion from board members, comments from board members? If not,
Call the question.
the question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding cost to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thanks for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 258. Loring,
Yes.
Bechtel,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Fletcher.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against, Mr. Chair.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
Member Loring.
Natalie, I know we just voted on this last one. Can you look at that 20D one and the AC comments? There was 2 in favor. No, disregard that. There's 3 in favor. And then 1 that was in the middle with general comments and 2 against. Disregard, thanks.
Mr. Chair, move to adopt Proposal 259, reauthorize a winter antlerless moose season during March in a portion of 21D Delta.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this one, the department supports it, and we have the necessary advisory committee support to reauthorize it as well.
Thank you for that. Discussion from board members? If
Call
not,
the question.
Question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding cost to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 259. Fletcher,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Loring,
Yes.
Bechtel.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, move to adopt Proposal 260, reauthorize a winter antlerless moose season during part of February and March in 21E Echo.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The department does support this, as well as the necessary advisory committees as well.
Thanks for that. Comments from board members? If not,
Call the question.
question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding cost to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thank you for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 260. Loring,
Yes.
Fletcher,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Bechtel,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for that.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt Proposal 261, reauthorize the resident antlerless moose seasons in Unit 26.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, with this one, the department supports it, and we have the necessary advisory committee support to reauthorize it as well.
Thanks for that. Comments from board members? If not,
Call the question.
question's been called.
The board has heard no concerns from the public regarding cost to private persons if this regulation is adopted.
Thanks for that. Will you pull the board, please?
Final action on Proposal 261. Bechtel,
Yes.
Fletcher,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Loring,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 0 against, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for that. That concludes all of our proposals for this meeting. And at this point in time, we're going to get into miscellaneous business. There's only one point in miscellaneous business down in our last meeting down in Southeast. We had a pretty good discussion about the guide concessions program. And I've invited Jason Bunch as invited testimony here. He's going to come up, he's going to give us a presentation, and for those of you who don't know him, he was a former chairman of the Big Game Commercial Services Board. He's been working with this for an incredibly long time, so come on up, sit down. I'm sure all of us will be grabbing our codifieds right here to brush up on them, but whenever you're ready, Jason.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members and staff. I appreciate this opportunity. So I didn't hear the Southeast conversation, so honestly, I don't know where you guys are as far as what you've discussed, what you reviewed, and what questions you might have. So we could do this two different ways. We could look through, I could give you a boring slideshow and talk about a lot of boring stuff, and I could talk real fast, and you probably wouldn't capture but maybe 80% of what I was telling you or saying to you, or we could do this a different way, perhaps a little more informal. So, Mr. Chairman, whatever you would like, that's what I can do.
Awesome. If you have a few slides like that can maybe get us going here.
Sure.
We didn't have like a set direction we were going with our discussion down in Southeast. I really appreciate you spending the time here to enlighten us, because this is something very new, and we're working our way through it to develop the processes we need. So yeah, feel free. We don't have to be like super formal, but if you maybe start with a few slides to kind of get us going, it'd be awesome.
Okay, so let me get out of my, this is the, she's got me started here at the closing, so we'll figure this out. Come on up here and help me navigate this technical nightmare. All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, does the board know where we started with this, a little bit of the history, and why the board has been tasked with this?
Yeah,
Does everybody understand that?
Some background stuff, actually, to start off with, would be wonderful.
Background.
It really would. If nothing else, it's going to refresh our memories.
In a nutshell, while on the Big Game Commercial Services Board, it quickly became apparent that the Big Game Commercial Services Board was spending a large amount of money every year investigating state land users. But we weren't investigating federal land users. Why is that? When we started digging a little bit deeper into the federal land users, the guides on federal lands, it was pretty easy to recognize that there was permits, permit conditions, methods to maintain accountability, incentive to be a good conservationist, to quite frankly, not kill every critter on the landscape, because they had that permit for 10 years. They wanted to safeguard it. They wanted to re-win that permit so that they can continue to operate. When we looked at state land, the users of state land didn't have any of those incentives or any of that criteria. And it, quite frankly, in some places of the state's not stable as far as guide use. There is no balance. So we recognized that, but I didn't quite know where to begin. The straw that broke the camel's back was really 3 residents of Alaska came to a board meeting, and they begged for us to do something about state land use where it was congested. And at that point, as the chairman of the board and a guide, what choice do you have? It was when everything has come to a head and a resident is coming to a guide licensing meeting and begging you to do something, you don't have a choice. You have to do it. You have to look into it. So then we began to look at the history of guide use on state land. We went back before Osachek, and for any of you who don't know what Osachek is, that was a Supreme Court case that pretty much dismantled the old way of doing business pre-1988. We looked at that Supreme Court case. We recognized, we kind of drew in our heads what that looked like back then. And to be honest with you, it was a good old boys club. And rightfully so, they lost it. The Supreme Court didn't do something bad. They did something good. They said, you can't do it this way. You can do it, and here's how you do it. But the industry failed to implement that. There was a task force that was developed, though, out of that, a legislative task force, and the outcome of that was the federal land management as we have today. That's pretty interesting. The state did due diligence. The state recognized how to move forward, but the state didn't move forward. The feds did, and today we have a stable business with balance on federal land, but not on state land. I didn't know where to go, so I asked the commissioners of ADF&G, Commerce, and DNR to work with me to find a solution, and they did. We had the commissioner's special assistant as the liaison for ADF&G. We had the director of permitting the director for DNR and the director for Commerce, and myself. We pulled in a public member. It was Ted Spraker, who has a long history of understanding, and a state land guide who opposed concessions. That was our working group. After 17 public meetings, we found a solution. We wrote a finding. We handed that finding to a legislator, and these statutes came out of that finding. One of the biggest hurdles that we had was who decides when a state land concession is implemented? The Big Game Commercial Services Board can't do it. We're biased. We want them all to be concessions. The public can't do it. ADF&G doesn't have the bandwidth for it. DNR certainly doesn't have the bandwidth for it, nor do they have the experience. Who does it? This body does it. This body is in my opinion, is the greatest process we have in the state, and I am so proud of it. And when that creative solution came to the table, it was an absolute no-brainer. It meant that this body was going to have to do a little bit more work, and we understood that, but we also understood that we would be here with you, help you develop this, help you get the process streamlined, help you get it efficient so that we could have a stable guide industry with conservation, with economic return, with public trust, all wrapped up in one package. That sounds kind of naive, right? But I truly believe we can get there. And so I thank you for this opportunity to get that started. So that is the history. Is there any questions up to that?
Anybody, any questions so far? All right, no questions. Thanks, man.
I never know if no questions means that nobody was paying attention or...
We're all paying attention.
Okay. And so out of all that effort became... I'm gonna change my presentation here and just shoot off the cuff a little bit, which could be dangerous, but that's what I'm gonna do as soon as I figure this out. Okay. So the first part of the statutes that out of that work, I'll just read it to you. Establishment of the big game guide concession areas. The Board of Game shall consider and approve or disapprove a proposal to establish a big game guide concession administered by DNR. So what our vision was that just like any other proposal that you get, there would be a proposal in those 200 that would say, we recommend, we'll just use GMU 8. We recommend that GMU 8 go to concession, all state land within GMU 8 or something to that effect. Any person could send it, or I'm fairly certain our intent was, even though it doesn't say it in here, that the board could do it as well. I think you have the authority to do a board proposal. It says a person may submit a proposal to the Board of Game for establishment of a big game guide concession area, and you may consider that at the next regular meeting. So our intent there was that you wouldn't get a proposal for unit 20A at a South Central meeting, that you would get it at that region's, in that area's regional meeting. And, go ahead.
So let's start there, because that's not what the statute says. Your intent may be there.
Yeah, there we go.
But the black and white is not there, and this is why I was bringing up at the last meeting to make some regulations that pertain to that, because it's pretty clear to me that you can submit a proposal at for any of the meetings and be scheduled for the next one. I don't know how intent, maybe I can ask the Department of Law. Their intent is to have it in cycles, what Jason is saying.
Yeah.
But the statute doesn't say that.
Through the chair, Member Barrett, if I'm understanding correctly, I think this is also a distinction between what's in the uncodified for the initial guide concession area versus what's in the codified for subsequent guide concession areas. I believe the text of the codified language for subsequent areas does contemplate the proposal being taken up in cycle for the particular area. The initial, the uncodified language for the initial guide concession area does not have that requirement.
Yes, I understand that, the uncodified portions for the initial one. But this one says pretty clear, a person may submit a proposal to the Board of Game for establishing big game concession area after providing 15 days of public notice. The board may consider the proposal at its next regularly scheduled board. Oh yeah, in that region. Sorry, didn't read on. It's early in the morning.
And I have a question, I guess, for Department of Law too. So 1605-262 is not in our new regulations book. Why is it not in our new regulations book, and should it be in our new regulations book? No, it didn't.
So, Mr. Chair, I believe the reason for that was likely because this was originally passed as 262, and it was there was a lawsuit challenging that, and that was still ongoing when the legislature essentially reconsidered a new bill the next year, and so it was adopted as, I believe, 263. So 262 has, I believe, been invalidated through the court process, but the existing law we have now is in 263.
Thanks for that. Go ahead, sorry about that.
No, this is great, and this is exactly, I should have said, this is exactly where we need to be in the timeline of things. This isn't a circus. This isn't like, oh, we should know this by now. This is exactly where we should be. The goal is to flesh this out over the next year. Again, this is normal. This is what happens. And perhaps, and the goal is 2028, to be standing firm on 2 feet, prepared to take a proposal, all right? So we have time, and we're using that time wisely. Did I move forward? Let's see, did I do something? Okay, I think yeah, that's good. Let me look. Okay. So after taking public comment, the Board of Game, in consultation with Department of Fish and Game, DNR, Big Game Commercial Services, may approve a proposal to establish a concession area. Our intent, like we said, was any public member, you come here, you write a proposal, you come speak on it, the public gets a chance to speak on it. This is the only place to allow that to happen. And in consultation with those 3 entities was that we recognized quickly how useful the division is here when you are deciding proposals. Without the division, how could you ever make a good, knowledgeable decision, right? So we envisioned ADF&G in this seat, DNR in this seat, Big Game Commercial Services in this seat. That's what we envisioned, and that's what we tried to capture in statute. We wanted to force other agencies to join in this process and do due diligence, because DNR has permitting requirements. They have a database. They can give you numbers. They can give you a lot of information. Big Game Commercial Services, same. 4 years ago, we began redeveloping their database, thinking that this may happen someday so that they could come here and give you real numbers and help you kind of create kind of a painting of what is happening within that proposed area. And of course, ADF&G is already here, and they already do an amazing job. We wanted to bring those three together. That's the goal of this. It wasn't to, what it was not intended to be a letter, hey, we let you guys know, but we didn't hear anything. We were attempting to force them to the table to do due diligence so that you wouldn't be set up for failure as a board. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
I don't think so. Oh, Member Brett.
Yeah, so they're gonna be here. What if one of those agencies aren't at that meeting?
And this is part of the process. That is a great point. The other thing that and thank you for that question, Member Brett. One of the things that we envisioned was, you know how ADF&G comes here, at some point, they provide comments. So you can read their comments before they get here, and you have a pretty good idea of where they're going to go and what information they're going to provide. We would like to see that same criteria for all three agencies, not just ADF&G. Does that help answer that? So you will have that, but I think perhaps there's a creative way. I'm not smart enough to know how to do it, but I think there's a creative way to ensure that they have representation at each meeting. Now, if there's no proposal for concession, do they have to be there? I would say no. So perhaps in the process, the staff recognizes a proposal that for concessions, those agencies are notified in advance. They have a deadline for certain criteria of data to be provided or information to be provided, and then they come here to provide you that in person and to answer additional questions that may come up, especially with public comment, right? That's when those questions will come to you. That was the intent.
Thank you.
May approve a proposal to establish a big game guide concession area if the board determines that establishing the area supports the conservation and management of the state's land and big game resources, aids in the enforcement of state statutes and regulations relating to guided hunts for big game, and is in the public's best interest. So,
Member Brett.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I forgot on the last paragraph too, it says, Big Game Commercial Services established under 08-54-591, which is the creation of the Big Game Commercial Services Board. Why was it important to put that statute in there?
That was ledge legal.
Okay. And then point number 2, aids in the enforcement of state statutes and regulations relating to guided hunts for big game what was the importance of, aiding in enforcement? I mean, generally, the Board of Game always makes regulations that are enforceable as a rule of thumb.
You're speaking to 263C, what we have up on the board now, number 2?
Yeah, number 2,
Yep.
yes, please.
The DNR repeatedly came to the Big Game Commercial Services, and we would say to them, why haven't you gotten rid of this bad apple in the basket, right? You've likely witnessed that yourself. And they would repeatedly say, we don't have the ability to enforce our permitting. At least they have the ability, but it is a lengthy process. It is not a streamlined process. It is not black and white. And so they were just as frustrated as we were. You are part of the pie, but you are not the whole pie. Right? So you are the only trusted body to say, this is warranted, let's do this. Then DNR has the authority to take that recommendation and put it in play. And number two is for them.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Is there any other questions on this? Because this is pretty vague, and I believe we may have to have a little more discussion on this, especially when crafting your policy. This is important that you hit this criteria. You can't move one without this criteria.
So what's your guys' intent for, in the public's best interest? Does that mean how many people put public comments in that are pro for it or, against it, and that's the interest?
Sure, I think,
So
again,
mob-
that's
like mob
likely
rule?
it's likely to come down to how we craft your policy. But public interest could be how you do your allocation, 80-20. We're giving preference to resident hunters, as we should, while trying to achieve this balance of economic return to the state, stabilizing small business infrastructure within the state.
Gotcha. Good, thank you.
Director Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through the chair, Jason, I'm just curious, mulling over these 3 points in the statute, was it the working group that got together, was it the intent that actual regulations would be crafted from this statute? Thank you.
Through the chair, Director Scott, absolutely. That's why we're in the right place at the right time right now having this discussion. It couldn't be working out better. We have our statutes. A question to Director Scott: should, in your opinion, should the regulations be developed first, or should the policy and the procedures and the train of thought be kind of be in place, and then we craft regulations with that in mind?
I'm not sure how I feel about being asked questions now, but no, just kidding. No, I think you're spot on, and really the gist of you captured it great. Having the statute as a framework to develop these thought processes before a regulation was put in place. I was just thinking about actual regulations versus a policy statement or something like that. No, I think you're right. I think we're in the right spot.
We'll continue. So exciting. 263D, if the Board of Game approves the establishment of a big game guide concession area under this section, the board shall determine the number of full big game guide concession area permits and limited big game guide concession area permits that the Department of Natural Resources shall make available. On its face, this looks like an overwhelming burden to the Board of Game. It is not, or at least it doesn't have to be. Now, you'll have to forgive me because I'm not technically savvy on this setup here, but I'm going to shift forward because I abandoned the presentation and we're using a more interactive process here. This is an excerpt from the 2013 DNR public scoping efforts. That was about a 4-year effort for them. They really did due diligence. Their program that they were in 2013 that they were suggesting was a statewide program, and it had many, many, many holes in it, holes that we have closed up with our program. But it failed in 2013 because of those holes. But out of that process was not without an advantage. This was a product of that process. It is your easy button. So again, this is just an excerpt, but this is for every guide use area in the state. It's 5 pages, so I didn't bring all 5 pages. But I did highlight 19C because it's been a topic of discussion. So if you stepped back a little bit and you drew this, what is this going to look like? A proposal comes to you. There's 3 agencies sitting here. They're providing you the data. As a board, you decide that you have hit the criteria that you need to hit, which we just discussed. You said, we're going to move this and we're going to approve this. You vote on it, you approve it to go into concession. The next thing for you to do is to establish the permits. Here's your easy button. You have some options here. You could simply implement these. Again, in the yellow would be 19C as a whole, broken down by guide use area. And you can say we're going to implement 9 full concession permits and 5 limited permits. You could approve that and you can move on. Or you may get public discussion that 1907 really can only handle 1. It's a small area. They could articulate why, but they may also articulate that you could apply a limited permit in there versus a full. So you can change this at will. But again, this came from a rather robust public scoping with maps and guides and the public. Everybody was there. It was quite the zoo.
Did I hear you correctly? This was created in 2013?
Yes, that is correct.
Do you think having that as I'd call it a cheat sheet, that information pertains to 2026?
Yes, I do still think that it pertains. The boundaries of the guide use areas haven't changed. Perhaps the numbers of critters or the stress on the critters in those areas have changed, and that's why this is just a starting point. You recognize that sheep have gone down since 2013, therefore perhaps this number should go down. But then you would look at, and we can build this into our kind of our finding or our policy. You may find that, no, the critters are still stable there, the resident use is still stable there, but we just don't have as many sheep.
Director Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on Member Barrett's question. So ironically, I was around when we did this, and I was an area biologist, and we literally sat in a room with maps and drew out areas. And so I think that the value of this was kind of to tune up the current process. Mm-hmm. You know, it actually got us, and it did. It fell flat on its face for the reasons that Mr. Bunch has pointed out. But it certainly, we didn't have to totally recreate the wheel.
Yes, thank you for that, Director. That's exactly right. This is a starting point. You recognize a difference in the moment. This board has the ability to change that without even thinking. Okay. Now I have to go back and find my space since I've abandoned my... Oop, there it was right there.
Yeah, Member Brett.
Yeah, I guess before you get too further along, again, you mentioned a statute there pertaining to the DNR, the AS 3805.022, which is a DNR. But within that statute, you know, there's a lot of subjective and interpretive language on there. Did they define some of that? Like, you have to provide a superior hunting experience.
Can Can you point me to the language that you're talking?
Oh, yeah, it's found in statute 38.05.22. It would be B2, little B2.
I don't have that right in front of me,
Oh.
but there are definitions within that. I don't know. I don't have a direct answer for you on that. We can flesh that out, though.
Yeah. Oh, Kimberly's got something.
Department of Law.
I just wanted to point out that the agencies, in areas where the statute and the statutory interpretation does involve some agency expertise, the agencies do have some leeway to use that expertise to interpret how they want to define undefined terms. So something like superior hunting experience, I would say with the agencies at play, that is something that would implicate agency expertise, so you would have some discretion to deliberate on how you would want to apply those terms.
Okay, so to determine the number of full big game guide concession area permits and limited permits that should be issued, which we just discussed, and the specific authorizations that should attach to each concession permit. Specific authorizations. That's a rather vague term, so I will just provide you the intent of that. We didn't see that the success of the program would just be implementing concessions. That would fall short, potentially fall short, and it would potentially take some tools out of the Board of Games tool bag to recognize a management hurdle and not have the appropriate tool for it. So what I mean by that is, if you look at 19C, this was just the intent here. If you look at 19C, we have less sheep on the landscape. You haven't identified maybe quite yet what you're gonna do with that, but perhaps a tool would be, it would look like this. You've moved it to concession. You've established that there will be 9 full and 5 limited. Of those 9 full, perhaps you would say there's only that a full concession permit would only have up to 2 clients for sheep. Or the limited concessions, there are no clients for sheep on that limited concession because you're trying to point those limited personnel guide businesses to moose, bear, caribou, other opportunities. I'll stop right there so you can think about that.
Questions for board members so far? All right, I think we're good so far.
An advisory board composed of representatives of the state departments and boards listed in C of this section, who are the agencies that we've been discussing, ADF&G, DNR, and Big Game Commercial Services, who are familiar with the area and interested members of the public to assist the board in making a determination. We understood really quickly that this could get robust fast on you, especially with a game management unit. Or perhaps you had 4 days of deliberation and you didn't have time for this. This one may take time. We wanted you to have the tools to get assistance, to get the agencies together. They could provide you the criteria that they recommended and why, meaning the number of full concessionaires, the number of limited, and any authorizations to permits. Perhaps maybe even you might kick this to an advisory board if there was recommendation, or if there was a need for a boundary change. What would that boundary change to that unit look like? And then how are they going to work with Big Game Commercial Services to develop that develop it and change it? We weren't trying to say, you shall have an advisory board and this shall be this robust process. Doesn't necessarily need to work that way all the time, but we wanted to give you the tool and the option to do that.
Member Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So currently, well, maybe not currently, but my understanding is the board has no authority to request a department or board support to spend money. Does this statute now give us the ability to create an advisory board, and somebody's got to fund a meeting? Is it going to come out of board support or DWC, or where's the funding come from creating an advisory board?
Through the chair, Member Brett, that's an excellent question. You know, one of the sticking points, and I imagine Mr. Bunch will get there, is, you know, the funding of the program as we've gone along. My understanding is that is coming. It's working its way, you know, through the government wheels. I'd have to defer to the Department of Law if, you know, this provides you my interpretation, it provides you the tool to develop an advisory board. It doesn't necessarily force the Department or Division of Wildlife Conservation to be a part of that. However, I mean, in good faith, you know, I anticipate that we would be.
Member Loring.
Thank you. Jason, thanks. The the Big Game Commercial Services Board has lots of funds that are kind of sitting in limbo from license fees and that type of thing, a pretty substantial amount. Is that something that could be tapped for this process we're talking about here? Either legislative, is it within the balance to get that money out? Because there is a bunch of money out there that's just not being used.
I don't think so, but I do think that they would pay their representatives' way, right? And when we looked at this advisory board, we really were envisioning in this day and age, a Zoom meeting, multiple Zoom meetings, they don't have to cost a lot. They can be public at a very low fare. And we were really, in all honesty, that I think we have that on the record discussing that and saying this wouldn't be a big lift. We could have everyone who has a piece of this pie, a responsibility in this process to come to the table, offers their experience and their information, and figure it out. Again, just a tool. You don't have to do it. I don't think you'll actually have to do it very often, but it is a tool for you.
Yeah, Member Brett.
Yeah, so I think maybe Kimberly or Department of Law had maybe a comment on that. Would we have the ability then to, you know, create an advisory board? It's going to cost something.
Through the chair, Member Barrett, I agree with Director Scott that the statute does give you the authority to establish the advisory board. The ability of that advisory board to meet and function would likely be subject to potential budgetary limitations of the relevant agencies.
Thank you.
Okay, and so here's what, in a nutshell, what the statutory process would look like. A public or board proposal, that's step one. Step two, agency consultation and public comment, step two. Step three, board decision. Step four, the board define the number of concession and permit types. That's the easy button that I showed you. Step five, determine permit authorizations if applicable. And step six, send to DNR for implementation. That's it, in a nutshell. Are there any questions, Mr. Chairman?
So I'm getting caught up from the beginning of this process to the end of this process. Basically, what you're saying is a proposal will come in front of us, right? And that proposal will have criteria in it, just like we have our proposals here. You know what the meaning of this regulation, intent, and everything. It would come to the board, And then whenever we would take up that proposal at the table, whenever we're in, discussion and deliberations about it, there'll be a member of the Big Game Commercial Services Board, an attaché from the DNR, and also a department, representative. So at that point in time, they would put forth the proposal, we'd have discussion about the proposal, and I'm caught up to that point, right? And, we had a really big proposal. We put a sheep working group together, spent a ton of money on it, had a bunch of different user groups, everyone from the, Denali National Park biologist, all different user groups, guides, transporters, just state resident hunters. And they overwhelmingly decided that they wanted a concessions program in 19C was part of the solution to that problem in the name of conservation. And we passed that proposal. It did not fly, and is it just because we did not have a DNR representative at the table, Kimberly? Is that the only reason that we didn't have a physically available DNR representative?
To the chair, my understanding was that there were deficiencies identified in the consultation, and specifically also how the record was made at the board meeting. So if you did not have a representative from DNR to satisfy the consultation with DNR, that would have been one of the problems. The other problem would be how the record was put forth at the Board of Game meeting about the involvement of the agencies. So I think we have discussed having representatives from the agencies at meetings where these are considered, and that should help avoid that problem in the future.
So your opinion, I know I'm not going to hold you to it or anything, but your opinion so far, this process would be defendable to this point that, Jason's talked about?
To the chair, yes, I think to the extent that he is contemplating, representatives from the agencies being involved at the meeting where the proposal is being considered, yes.
Thanks for that. Member Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify then, the funding also will need to be approved through legislator, right? So last year, the funding was going through the process again, and I believe it was confirmed through DNR, but we do not have the funding yet through the department, so that would potentially be the next step for next year.
Through the chair, I only have so much bandwidth, and so I have to trust that Director Scott will let me know when I need to step up to the plate and assist in getting the money for this program. But it is in statute now, and so it has a backbone, and it has guardrails, and it has requirements, and money is part of those requirements. So I think we'll get there.
Director Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chair, Member Mueller. Again, as I mentioned, my understanding is the funding is in the pipeline for this year. The department, we use things like, RSAs, reimbursable service agreements, to move money between departments. That hasn't happened as far as I know, but we're also not through the legislative session where we know what the budget is. So, but it very much so looks promising. And, frankly, we're at a different place than we were a year ago with this. And lots of people have hung their hats on, including, our side, our division, waiting to see how this is going to play into the overall bigger picture of wildlife management. This is people management, but it definitely has a direct nexus to wildlife management.
Thank you. I know you all have been working hard on it, so it's, I appreciate that, and just helping me to understand as being new on the board, but I have been following along quite a bit, but I appreciate the conversations for sure.
You know, Mr. Chairman, and with that, I think that kind of summarizes where we are. That's a 30,000-foot view, but it gives you something to think about, your board to think about. Perhaps next steps is to maybe a subcommittee, a small subcommittee, to just further flesh this out, to perhaps even help you draft maybe we start with an outline, step 1, step 2, step 3, and really craft how that process would go for you, and then see what comes out of that. If regulations are warranted, then we run with that, and if they're not, if you get to the end and you find that they're not, like you thought they were in the beginning, then we're still there, right? Like, I think we need to just continue with this process, continue fleshing this out. We have our criteria, we have our guardrails. We know the piece of the pie for Board a Game. It starts with a proposal. It ends with either you accepting it or not, and establishing a couple of criteria, and then that's it. It ends with a letter to DNR saying pull the trigger, and it's up to DNR to actually get all this rolling, which is another very, very robust project, and it's about 90% complete. So again, we're right on time with this, and we just need to keep narrowing it down so that we can hit a home run when the first proposal comes.
Member Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another option that I was thinking of that wouldn't cost any money or have to be funded was, my thoughts were, is to put this, basically the statute or our requirements, our three subjects that we got to work under, out to call for the public to suggest what kind of regulatory language, how to define what supports conservation and management. I mean, it's easy to support conservation and management when I'm taking less animals off the landscape.
Through the chair to Member Brett, that's your process. The Board of Games process is not my business. I'll support you 100%, whichever direction you want to go. I do understand the intent of this program. I do understand DNR's portion of the program. I think that your allocation findings that you used, the tools that you all used this week was extraordinary. It was extraordinary consistency. It was thoughtful. It was due diligence. I think those tools you'll find are the exact same tools you need for this. I know that when we did have 17 public meetings inside 4 months. I chaired each one of those. I can tell you how painful that was, how difficult that was. It would be interesting. I'm not sure that a big public scoping is necessary at this point with all the tools that you already have. But that's your prerogative, not mine.
Thank you.
Other board members?
Mr. Chairman, one more thought to just kind of not to belabor that. If I'm understanding correctly, if you did have a small group to flesh this out to bring back to the board, would that then be public scoped at your meeting through the process that you already have, or would that be adopted potentially by the board without public scoping?
Member Brett.
No, I agreed that would be public scoping. Generally, what the public thinks about doing those small working groups like that and then bringing a board-generated proposal before the board, the public's not really comfortable with board-generated proposals. And that's what I was trying to avoid. I mean, surely we could get 2 or 3 board members and a couple people from the public and draft up something or not, and and bring it and do a board-generated proposal. But usually there's a lot of angst when the board does something like that.
Through the chair to Member Brett, in my experience, if you bring nothing to the public, you will get a broad spectrum of ideas that will be very hard and difficult to chew on. If you bring a well-thought-out, articulated, lawful policy or idea before the public, they'll be able to narrow down focus and give you, substantial feedback that would be relevant and helpful. So again, it's not my process. I'm just trying to help you think tank this.
Member Loring.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to Member Brett's question. We have working groups throughout history with Board of Game, and the most recent one was the 19C Sheep Working Group. And Jason's exactly right. Those groups bring together a targeted set of points, bullet points to look at, and then those are explored. And the public's involved. They're open meetings. They can be involved. They can listen to it, and then we can move forward with that type of setup. And bringing people together in person is expensive, but we can do it the Zoom way too, and it's not as as nice as being in person, but it still operates. So that's kind of the way I would think it would move forward. And
the public comment part of this is so important. But it's a question of whether we want it on the front side and the back side, or if we just are we just going to ask for input at the beginning and then not at the end on both sides, And I really like the process that the Board of Game works under now, where we receive that input at the end, and it helps influence our deliberations. But that's just my opinion. Member Mueller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I understand through the process that Member Loring was sharing regarding the sheep working group and the discussions on 19C. I believe that was also funded, and we're trying to minimize funding through this process. And I also, from what I understand with that sheep working group, that there was a lot of, we couldn't come to an agreement. Is that correct? Or the people that were on the committee?
No, the sheep working group came up with a proposal. They put in front of the board, and then we approved. And ultimately, it was decided that since DNR wasn't specifically consulted, that it was found not to be able to be implemented.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And that was at last year's state meeting, correct? Yes. Okay, then my next question, Mr. Bunch, let's see. You spoke about the responsibilities of DNR. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Certainly, through the chair. DNR is the land manager, so they have the authority to implement this. The Board of Game actually does not have the authority to implement it. You really have the authority to recommend it, but the language says, upon your recommendation, DNR shall. Okay, so that's kind of where in Department of Law, please, if I'm not a lawyer, so if I step out of bounds, please correct me. But the way that I understand it is your recommendation shall be implemented. But DNR, they are the drivers in this. They have been amazing, by the way, in this entire process. Very helpful. They have a couple of, both of their directors their permitting directors are amazing. They have a long history of understanding. They really have their finger on their pulse. They remind me of the area biologists that you have. They're just rubber meets the road people, and they understand. So they're actually excited about this because it's going to give them some enforcement, some criteria to hold users of our public land accountable, and so that's their place. If that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Any other board members? If not, you can continue if you have.
Chairman Fletcher, I don't have anything else. I think we would just start to muddy the waters at this point. I think that was enough to chew on. I would give you a little bit of my experience with this. we started our first 2 public meetings. I didn't know where to go. I actually sat on the phone with the director of DNR, telling her that I thought this was an impossible task, that this would go nowhere. I had no idea that I'd be sitting here 3 years later with a plan. I think that I thought that it was impossible because of the first couple of meetings we had. We didn't have an agenda. We didn't know where to focus. We didn't have an idea. And so we just walked around. Basically, we walked around in the bushes for a couple of meetings. And then we found the trail. And once we found the trail in that 3rd or 4th meeting, we were able to bring solutions to the table for the public to vet. And that's where it began to grow. And so that would be that's my experience. If that's valuable for you to decide how to move forward or not, that's up to you.
Member Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Jason. 3 years of your life. I've had many conversations with you, and sometimes we agreed to disagree, but in the end, we've been working together, and everybody's been working together, and it's good to flesh things out, and you've done a wonderful and fantastic job. And yeah, the next piece of that work that you got to finish up on is, nothing compared to the, 1 page where you had to do for the Board of Games. So, no, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and Member Loring.
Yeah, thank you. If Jason's all done with his presentation, 3 years ago, when I first was appointed to the board, I was also appointed to the Big Game Services Board as the Board of Game representative. And I've had a chance to work with Jason through those 3 years. He was the chairman at the time, and he timed out after about a year and a half of that. But we had those same conversations 3 years ago, him and I, about where we're going and the frustrations. And we're not talking about hours or days. We're talking about months, cumulative hours, months, of his time he put into this to get to where we're at now, and working with the legislature, going to numerous trips to Juneau, talking to these folks, day in and day out. And it was not an easy task. And I just need to really give him a lot of credit to get to where we are today from where we were. And this has been a problem ever since Osage, with this guy concession. And we've seen all the good and the bad and ugly about it. We've seen how the federal program works. And we need to move forward and get the state program in place. And at some point in time, we're going to have to go through this whole process again with transporters and outfitters, because those same issues are in that area as we have with the guys on state land. A little bit different, but the same problems, and that's 10 years down the line. But we'll be back in front of this board and DNR and everybody else with that industry also. So thank you, Jason, for every minute you put into it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's to get to the point where we're actually having this conversation in this venue is, it's unbelievable. And I'm under the belief that we have a meeting coming up in July. I think we should have a discussion at that meeting and maybe form a subcommittee and start coming up with some criteria and a way to move forward from the Board of Games side. I'd be in strong support of that. So, and since we do have a meeting coming up in July, it'll give us all a little bit of time to think about it, and everybody can meet there, and we can figure out who would like to serve on that subcommittee, or who we would like to serve on the subcommittee. So, any other questions from board members about this? And thanks a whole bunch for coming, because man, whenever I'm reading through a regulation and I'm trying to figure out, what intent is and the way that somebody wanted to implement it, I just get fumbled around, man. It's like I leave my backpack on the side of the hillside and it gets kicked and it ends up down in the pucker brush. Director Scott.
You found your trail, though. Yeah. Nicely done. Yeah, Jason, it's really good to see you. But I also wanted to recognize that we've had some of the folks that are going to be most impacted by this program as we move forward. They've been here the whole time. I'm not even sure what day it is yet, but you've hung in there. We appreciate you've got support behind you. We've heard lots of, we've heard a lot of positive things. But let's be real, there's winners and losers in this. Yep. And that's, the fact that we are having this conversation, you've navigated that and, with support from others. So job well done.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate it.
Vice Chairman Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Appreciate all your hard work. So now that we just established this with the Board of Game, this meeting, who's going to convey this big step that we just took to Big Game Board, Guide Services, and DNR, and the other stakeholders that are involved in this?
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair. It's probably going to be me. I've been the kind of the central point for this, bringing the three agencies together, bringing them up to speed, trying to help them navigate how they're going to make decisions. And I've been doing that since day one. It was pretty apparent that the Big Game Commercial Services Board did not have the ability to capture their data like ADF&G does. In fact, it was pretty embarrassing when I realized it. We looked forward saying, hey, if we're going to require them, if we're going to get them to the table, there's going to be questions asked of them, like how many guides are in this guide use area? How many critters do they take? How many days of field? Tons of questions like that. And they didn't have the database to actually, they do uptake the information, and they do enter it into a database, but I think it's one step above DOS, if ever you guys remember that little green screen. And so it's pretty bad, and so they've been working with us. It's a slow process, but they've been working with us to be able to query that information from their database and come here and provide you adequate data. And so we have that that was 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago that we started that. They've done their first run through. It's not quite adequate enough. We're going back to the drawing board. I just sent them 2 emails yesterday on the questions that this board had of licensing and guide activity that were never answered, interestingly enough. I sent those to them as a test. Can you answer this? Can you query this? And we'll see where we end up. I have a meeting with the Director of Commerce tomorrow, and I have, and I'm also consulting with DNR weekly. So it'll be me.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to reiterate what Director Scott said, there'll be winners and there'll be losers, and this is new ground. I started out in this system, and I've been in this system forever, so it's really easy for me to wrap my head around it. I've always operated and got a guide on National Wildlife Refuge lands, and this is a process that I'm very, very familiar with, and that I love, and I think promotes perfect stewardship. I don't want to say perfect stewardship, but I do realize that there's a number of folks that have not operated under that system, and they're very scared about this. So I just want to say that. So, well, Member Mueller.
Thank you. I guess I'll just ask a question because of the timeline. I realize that we are discussing guide concession program, and we would have to implement that first, and then potentially after that is when we could address transporters. Is that the understanding?
Through the chair, yes. The Big Game Commercial Services Board at almost every meeting puts on the record that they can't wait for this type of program to be developed for transporters. Right, currently they have no mechanism to limit transporters when required or when the public feels necessary, other than over-regulation. But as we've seen with guided activity, over-regulation is not very practical. It's really a burdensome way to maneuver your lack of tools elsewhere. So we're excited about that, but it's going to be a decade for sure.
Thank you for that. Any further questions for Jason? If not, Jason, thanks a whole bunch, man. I really appreciate all your time.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, board members. You guys crushed this week. It was impressive. As a Kodiakan, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you all, the process, and how proud I am to have been a part of it. So thank you.
You must have missed Wednesday morning. A little more discussion from board members. We have a special meeting coming up, and I think it'd be worth it to discuss whether we're going to take public testimony at that meeting, or if we're going to have it open to public testimony. And then can we also decide, if we have public testimony, how long we want to give each testifier? Is that appropriate?
To the chair, yes. Based on the conversation earlier in this meeting, when the commissioner detailed the anticipated topics for the meeting, it is going to include regulatory action. So there will be the requisite public notice that goes out, invitation for public comment. If you're choosing to take oral testimony, then as you do in your regular meetings as well, you can do that. That is allowed by the APA, and you can determine how long you'd like to give people to speak.
Have board members' thoughts on that? Member Brett?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd hate to come up with a hard number of how many minutes a testifier may testify. I would maybe do it as a spread and determine that amount of time once we have public sign up.
Would that be appropriate, or do you need to have it on the call?
To the chair, I believe that the notice usually has if I'm recalling correctly, I think for a normal meeting, like the meeting we had this week, I think the notice provided 3 to 5 minutes listed in there. So if you wanted to identify a range like that, you can, and then depending on time constraints or whatever, if you needed to find something more workable within that range of time, I believe that would be appropriate.
Yeah, Member Loring.
Yeah, I think we need to, we have a 2-day meeting, and with five subjects. The Amber Road one, I just reading the paper that was just sent out by board support to us. There's a lot of stuff in there, so there could be quite a bit of public testimony about different parts of that. So I think we really need to think about that on how much we give them. So I think we can probably say 3 to 5 minutes, and then if we only have a few testifiers, I think you probably increase that at the board at our discretion, maybe give them 7 or whatever you want to do. But
Member Brett.
Yeah, I never anticipate how many people are going to public testify, but it should be limited to, 1 day or less. And there should be, an early sign up so we can adjust, because it's a 2-day meeting. Sometimes you can have enough public testimony to fill 2 days. Ambler Road's a pretty hot subject, so.
So limit public testimony to 1 day, would that be, is that what you're saying? Oh, go ahead.
So from the board's current notice, through the chair to the board members, the length of oral testimony may be limited 3 to 5 minutes or less for members of the public, and 10 to 15 minutes or less for Fish and Game Advisory Committees. So we could alter that in the upcoming notice, but I'm not sure with those limitations of minutes, we could limit it to like a day or something of that nature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Member Brett.
Don't we do that now?
We do that now. That's in the current notice, but if you wanted to limit that even further and say, only 3 minutes or 2 to 3 minutes or less for ACs, if you wanted to go 5 to 10 minutes for ACs, you had that option. We could do that in the public notice, but I was just saying that you mentioned like confining it to a day,
right.
And I don't know that we could do that while allowing the minutes, correct? Okay.
Member Loring.
yeah, thank you. So can we just make that spread maybe a little bit larger? 3 to 7 minutes, and then the board chairman, with discussion, can say exactly what it is at the meeting within that spread, kind of how we do it now, but just maybe make the spread a little bit bigger.
Through the chair to Member Loring, yeah, we can do that. I wanted to know what the board kind of wants in the notice. If you want to limit public testimony further, it'd be good to know how many minutes you're kind of thinking. But I wanted to interject when we thought we could limit it to a day. That's not, unless we put that in the notice, and then you'd have to, on the fly, decide how many minutes you're giving someone.
Yeah, it would be my belief that we should have a range of somewhere from 3 to 5 minutes for individuals, from range of somewhere from 5 to 10 minutes for ACs, and then perhaps limiting individual not to be able to do multiple testimony, from multiple organizations. Now we let somebody do a self testimony and a organization testimony, but I'm not a stickler on that. Member Brett?
Yeah, thank you. For the AC and organizational ones, I would shorten that due to the agenda, the items that are on the agenda. It's not a full-blown 100 proposals to go through. There's only a few subjects to address. I think we don't need to spend or allow 15 minutes for an AC to comment on, the narrow scope of on the agenda.
Yeah, are we kind of thinking 5 minutes for AC, something like that? Okay. Member Mueller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with you for public 3 to 5 minutes, and then for AC, maybe we say 5 to 10.
Okay, I like those numbers. Is other board members in agreement with that?
That gives you discretion to do what you want in between that, so that's a good spread. I like that, and then this board has discretion to modify that within that frame we set up.
And do we want testifiers to be able to give multiple testimony for different organizations too? Is anybody interested in that conversation? You know how now we do AC and then they can do a personal too or whatever. Member Mueller?
Yes, I think it's appropriate. I appreciated it here for this meeting and the last meetings. And for the topics that we do have at hand, like Member Al had shared, there's probably going to be a lot of input on the Ambler.
Member Loring?
Yeah, as long as we make that particular person who's representing a group the same time frame as the individual. If it's a 2-minute time frame, then 2 minutes for the group also.
All right. Do we have pretty good direction on what we want? I think the board kind of decided, we decided 3 to 5 minutes for a personal testimony, 5 to 10 minute range for a AC testimony. A testifier can give up to 2 testimonies like we have now. Do we need to put on our start time, and we might run late on the first day because I have no idea how many people are going to show up, and I do know that we have 2 days for that meeting, and we're going to have some definitely some deliberation. I know it's a limited amount of proposals, but do we have to put that on the notice, how late we're going to run? Is everybody good? Oh, Member Brett.
Yeah, I'm really comfortable with that. That's a minute longer than my favorite legislature will let me speak on a bill.
Thanks for that. If there's no further discussion, we'll take that course of action. Do any other board members have anything else before we conclude this meeting? Look, Member Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So regarding the special meeting, and maybe I haven't seen it yet, but would we be starting in the morning so board members would fly in the night before? Is that correct, or arrive the night before?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Other board members? I just want to conclude by saying it's been great being in Kodiak. We had a ton of public testimony. We got people that sat out here in the audience day in, day out. It's been great to get to see everybody. Definitely very welcoming. It's awesome to have Carrie over here and get through the first meeting and keep me in line, and she didn't hit me with this hammer. All the board support staff are the hardest working people in this building, and they will continue to work hard after we are already gone. So really appreciate that. And with that being, Director Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unlike normal, I'll be brief, but yeah, it's been wonderful to be in Kodiak. Really appreciate the welcome. I want to recognize our Region 2 folks. Outstanding job, as usual. But I also want to thank the board. You guys tackled you tackled some big things here. You always do, but there were a couple items here that took a lot of thought, and I imagine a lot of kind of processing. So well done. And to Carrie, welcome aboard. You did great. So thank you.
George.
Mr. Chair, indulge me, please. I'd just like to thank Mr. Dick Rohr for taking my father hunting in the 70s. That's why I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and then after I hit this beautiful mallet down to conclude the meeting, if everybody'd stick around, we got, for a couple minutes, we'll have Director Scott has something for him. So we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to invite all the Region 2 staff that are still in the room to move to the front. And I'm the director, so it's not really an invitation. Mr. Chairman and the board, we appreciate a few minutes and your indulgence with us. Over the years, every board meeting, I talk about staffing and I talk about transitions and things like that. And we are at the precipice of a pretty significant transition. And one of the things that we do, myself and Cindy Wardlow, we're members of the division management team, several others too. But we do watch out and try to, we want to make sure we tell people thank you. And we recognize people that have contributed, over the years, big things, little things, all, everything that comes with the every day as a Division of Wildlife Conservation employee. So today, I'd like Mr. Sellinger to come forward, please. And again, I'm the director.
That's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah, right. Today, we are going to recognize Mr. Sellinger with a Director's Meritorious Service Award. We spend a lot of time discussing these awards. We do provide others, but this is, if you will, the highest award that a director can provide to an employee. And I'm going to read the citation. Mr. Sellinger was nominated by his supervisor, Regional Supervisor Cindy Wardlow. Jeff Sellinger has been an integral asset to the Department of Fish and Game Division of Wildlife Conservation, beginning with his first position as a volunteer for the department in 1991, working with Harry Reynolds, bear research biologist out of Region 3. After this, he became even more immersed in the department as a graduate intern while continuing to dedicate his free time to intermittent volunteer work. Jeff's graduate internship culminated in a master's degree from the University of Alaska Fairbanks in 1995, in which he studied the seasonal habitat relationships of adult female deer on Kodiak Island, Alaska. How fitting. Jeff pioneered the use of helicopter darting techniques, with his work being the first formal study on Kodiak capturing and handling Sitka black-tailed deer, paving the way for future biologists for many years to come. Jeff was hired as a permanent employee of ADF&G in February of 1996 as the assistant area biologist for Region 4 based in Glen Allen. Jeff continued his career trajectory by accepting the position of the Kenai area biologist in 2002 and joining Region 2. He held this position officially for 16 years before taking on his most recent role as the Region 2 Management Coordinator in 2018. He served simultaneously as both the Management Coordinator and the Kenai Area Biologist until December of 2020. The willingness to work two positions consecutively speaks volumes to his dedication to the department and to public service. Jeff has served as the Region 2 Management Coordinator to date. Over the years, Jeff has held a variety of positions across multiple regions, almost all of them. While there were differences in job titles and duties, one theme remained constant: Jeff's passion and dedication to protecting, maintaining, and improving the resources he manages across the state in support of the agency's mission statement. We strongly recommend Jeff Selinger for the Director's Meritorious Service Award for dedicating 35 years of his life, expertise, and mentorships to others within the department. He has been a pillar of support for those around him at work, and the department will not be the same without him. So Jeff, it's my pleasure, and it's an honor, frankly, to award this to you.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words?
Okay.
Want to say a few words?
Through the director to the audience. No, it's been my pleasure, you know, you go through things and there's a few frustrations along the way, but it's always like people with the board and everybody who works so hard. It's just got to do a lot more than I think I ever deserved to do. So just thanks. I was kind of speechless right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would like to add that the reason he was such a good biologist, and you forgot it in his outline, is the years he spent as the biologist in Fairbanks' office, where he continually denied me the opportunity to harvest beavers on the Chena River.